Hey guys, welcome back to our Kika Pet Academy. And today in our video we're gonna reveal the secret and the question of the century: fresh meat versus dry meat. And to help me with this question, we have POTUS here today.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Perfect. I love this question.
It's, as I mentioned before, it's a question of the century.
And it's quite a difficult question, I would say, quite difficult to explain. But maybe it's not from the century, not of the century, but probably of the decade. But still, nowadays, it's very important. So if you want me to explain this...
I would love that.
Alright, but I think for our viewers to understand it better, I would need to write something.
Okay.
Because if I will not write, it can be a little bit of mix up the things. So
Okay.
can we go on board
sure.
and I will write it down?
It's becoming more interesting.
Yeah. All right. So let me do it in a simple way. All right.
Very simple.
Okay. So we write on the left side fresh meat, all right, versus dried meat. Dried meat. The dried meat, they have many synonyms. It can be a meat meal, it can be dehydrated meat. Actually, it's the meat which doesn't have the water inside. So that is kind of the concentration. Okay?
So they have many names, but still means the same thing.
Still means the same thing. There are some kind of very small differences, but in general it's the same.
Okay.
So the fresh meat, we understand that it has 70% around the water inside. As a human body, chicken, lamb, beef, any type of the animal, mostly there are 70% of the water. It depends, of course, on the age. Then it's about 15% of the proteins. And then the last 15% which is left is other things. Some minerals, some vitamins, etc. Okay? So this is the composition of the fresh meat. And here, if we talk about the dried meat, and if we take the same 100 gram here and 100 gram here, it has only 5% of water. It has 70% of proteins.
Okay.
And then the rest 25 is other things. So means that the biggest difference between the fresh meat of the same 100 gram and dried meat of the same 100 gram is the proteins here and here. So if we go a little bit deeper in the food, how does it look like as an ingredient? All right, let's take it as the composition.
So we're gonna talk here about the tri-pet food composition.
Exactly. So then you feel and then you see the main difference, right?
Okay.
So when we read a composition, I will write it's a composition. So when we have a composition, and sometimes we can see it, that the first ingredient is 70% of meat which is fresh. So we understand that in this 70% of fresh meat, there is 15% of proteins. So if we do the recalculation from 100 gram in total, it's about 11% of proteins which is coming from this particular ingredient. When we go different and we check on the other composition, on the other food, and we see that there is about 30% of the dried meat. So when we calculate here 30% of the dried meat, which has 70% of proteins, we get 21% of proteins from this first ingredient.
So the biggest difference, correct me if I'm wrong, when using fresh meat and dry meat, in the dry meat we can use less dry meat and have the same or even more proteins.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can compare easily here. If we take this composition as a case study, right? We see that to get 21% of proteins, for example, you need to have 30% of the dry meat as an ingredient, or probably 140% of fresh meat in order to get the same protein level.
So is it pretty much the same? Can we compare when humans do sports? They eat, for example, chicken. So is it similar if they eat like protein shakes?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the biggest benefits of the dried meat is that there is a concentration of the proteins.
Okay.
You can ask the fitness guys how much of the chicken fillet they have to eat to get the same amount of proteins comparing with the protein shake. That's why they use so much of the protein shake, because there is a concentration of the proteins. And one of the most important things for the dogs and cats actually is not so much of reading the composition, but actually the proteins itself and amino acids which they get from the proteins.
Okay.
So in this case, once again, the fresh meat, they have a lot of water inside, so they don't provide so much of proteins. Then there is a question that is additional question that I usually get and I usually listen from the markets, is that alright, but on the composition we see that proteins here is 30 and let's say fats is 20, right? And the same is here, 30 and 20. So where does the 30 comes from? So if we take the case study, the same case study here, we see that from 30, 11% comes from animal-based origin. Here, 21% comes from animal-based origin. The rest comes from the other ingredients. It can be from plant origin or something like that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we compare this to a protein shake, for example.
Yeah.
But whenever we talk about the fresh meat, chicken, this is not the fresh meat in the food. Is it still dry?
No, when you use it in the production, actually you have to make it kind of the liquid still in order to use in the production. So please don't get me wrong, but it's not like you're putting the chicken fillet in the food and make the extruded kibble. It's not really like that. It's more like special processing process, which afterward you use a lot of heat for that, and it's kind of the liquid that you're starting to use in a pet food production.
Okay, can you tell me the biggest maybe benefits of using fresh meat and dry meat? Like if I would choose a food, can you tell me the benefits?
Well, first of all, we don't know the taste exactly what the dogs and cats are feeling when they eat the product,
I
right?
actually heard that some people like the cat and dog food.
No, they eat yes, but we don't know the feeling what the cat feels
That's
when
true.
they eat the food, right? Or the dog. So in general, the fresh meat, I think that the biggest benefit is the mindset that you feel it's fresh. You know, it's not fresh when you use it into the food production, but it was fresh maybe 2-3 days ago or a few months ago. So then you're feeling fresh. But when we talk about the real protein source, it's more safe, a little bit more safe to use the dried one, because it's already prepared, dried protein source for our dogs and cats. So both of them are needed for the proteins, and both of them can bring the proteins from animal origin, and both of them can meet the needs of dogs and cats. It's just a matter the way you use it in the food. So I think that, you know, it's my personal opinion, but I think that the most important thing is that we have to assure that the proteins and amino acids which gets dogs and cats from the food coming more from the animal-based origin. Whenever the process you use it, you can use both as much as you have a lot of proteins which come in from the animal.
Okay. Now everything is clear. So guys, it means you can buy food with fresh meat and dry meat as long as it suits your pet and it's all good. So thank you so much for today, and guys, if you have any questions, please comment below.